This, of course, doesn't mean that only women under Islam are oppressed. Of course not. And only veiled women are oppressed. Of course not. But it is important to oppose the veil in its own right. And this has nothing to do with being hate-filled or promoting racism or attacks on Muslims or veiled women. This is often one of the things we hear, you know, this is Islamophobia, this is racism. It's not. You can't be racist against an idea, a belief, against a practice even of that belief. It's against people that you're racist, and this is completely not the case. I mean, the example I'd like to give you is, if you're opposed to female genital mutilation, you're not being racist against the girl or woman who's been mutilated. No connection. But when it comes to the political Islamic movement, criticizing Islam, criticizing the veil, suddenly it becomes an issue of racism. Again, something that the Islamists have become very clever in using in order to silence people from actually criticizing Islam and criticizing the political Islamic movement. And that's why, in my opinion, the chador, which is the all-engulfing outfit, the burqa, the niqab, they have to be banned to defend women's rights. I'm not talking about the veil, because I think, regardless of what it is, adult women have the right to wear a hijab if they want to. But I'm talking about the burqa, the niqab. And, you know, we've heard about how, well, the burqa should be banned. This is a discussion in Holland, for example. We've had it sometimes in Britain, because it doesn't allow interaction, or because it makes, you know, other people very uncomfortable to see a woman in a burqa. And I mean, I don't think that's the main point. These are side effects. It has to be banned because sexual apartheid should be unacceptable in the 21st century, just as racial apartheid is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable for women to have to walk around in mobile prisons, in body bags, because religion demands that they be kept invisible. Any mention of a ban, however, if you say quickly, you hear about cries of authoritarianism. As an aside, I mean, all these authoritarian things that religion does, there's no question about it. It's allowed to go ahead and do whatever it wants. But I think what we need to understand is the fact that a ban is not necessarily something bad. Society bans many things in order to safeguard and protect people living in it, often due to a left, a progressive social movement demanding it. Child pornography is banned. Doesn't mean that it's bad because it's banned. Child labor is banned. Female genital mutilation is banned in many countries, and so on and so forth. And a ban in such situations is a very good thing, and it helps to stop abuses from taking place. The argument that banning will only increase the burqa or niqab is ridiculous, as if saying, well, if you ban child labor, you're going to make more children work. Or if you ban child pornography, there's going to be more of it out there. I mean, those arguments don't usually hold when you argue it over other rights issues, but when it comes to Islam and political Islamic movement, suddenly you have all these arguments that wouldn't stand on one foot if it was regarding something else. Also, calling for a ban doesn't necessarily mean that you want to criminalize a segment of the population. For example, there's a law in many places that you have to wear a helmet when you're riding on a motorcycle. There are a lot of Sikhs who don't wear the helmet. They're not all languishing in prison right now because, you know, they're being criminalized because they've got their turban on and they can't wear the helmet. So again, arguments that are really an attempt to stop us from dealing with the main issues and addressing them. Islamists and their apologists constantly tell us that we have to respect people's religious expressions and their beliefs. And I've said this many times, yes, we have a duty to respect human beings, but we have no duty to respect beliefs or religion and its expression. No way, no shape, no form. Having a right to a belief, having the right to a religion is not the same as saying it's a no-go area and it's free, it has to be free from any criticism or condemnation. These are two very different things. And also, to say that it's racist to criticize Islam, the veil or political Islam, is utter nonsense. You cannot be racist against an idea or a belief or an ideology. Racism is distinctions, exclusions, restrictions, or preferences based on race, color, descent, many of them constructed, national and ethnic origin of individuals, not their beliefs. Xenophobia makes sense. Homophobia makes sense. Islamophobia does not make sense as a form of racism. And we need to start challenging what has become part of mainstream discourse and dialogue. Has come through excusing, apologizing, and legitimizing brutality. Any advance in society has come through an all-out challenge and a pushback of regressive values, medieval values, not for the Western values, but for universal ones. These values are the same ones that people in Iran are fighting for today. Secularism, humanism, separation of religion from the state, women's rights, unequivocal women's rights, human rights. So these are not just Western values. And you know, what I always find interesting is when the Islamic regime wants to access nuclear technology, or it wants to use the latest, you know, tools in torture, it never talks about them being built by a Western government or a Western society. But when it comes to rights, this is the first thing they say, and particularly if it comes to women's rights. It's a Western concept. And I think we need to say, no, I'm sorry. You know, and I think we need to stop apologizing. I think especially women's rights activists in Europe need to stop apologizing. Because, in my opinion, women's rights groups are abysmally failing women, rights activists, women's rights movement in countries like Iran and elsewhere, and in their very own doorstep in Europe itself, because of this whole climate of apologizing, appeasing, and staying silent on what is a Holocaust of the century. So I'm glad to be here. I'm not sure what you think about what I've said. I see some people nodding, I see some people... but I think that's very good, and I think we need to have this discussion. I think it's crucial to have this discussion, and I think we need to get to a point where we put human beings first, put women first, human beings first, children first, men first, and not religion, culture, belief, so on and so forth. Thank you.